business or in a leadership position, there's things you don't want to do or you don't enjoy doing. How do you get yourself to do them? What do you do to get that energy up to be able to accomplish something?
It's just straight discipline for the most part. It's got to get done, and I got to get it done. That's how I look at it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the FIP Printing Pros podcast. I'm your host, Josh Steinison. With me, my co-host, Chris Lockwood. And today what we'll be talking about is doing the things that we don't necessarily like to do in our business, but is necessary for us to do in order to provide the most success for our business. And for me, I'll start off with, as much as I may seem like I totally enjoy this, and it's not even that I don't enjoy it. That's the wrong word. I don't even. It's not that I don't enjoy going on the podcast. It's more so that it's like more of those tasks on my list that I'm like, I gotta go do this. It's not because of anything negative about it necessarily. It's just it's hard to necessarily get up and want to do this type of thing.
I can see that. This is the part I do enjoy, though. I love this part.
I mean, once we start talking and stuff like that, but okay, so the pre-planning, like I got my notes here, things like that, like the thought process. Okay, what are we going to talk about? Creating the ideas of the topics, all that kind of stuff, and making sure I'm even doing the proper things that we should be talking about to the type of things that we're trying to, target and market and everything like that. That's the stuff that, like, for me is not super fun.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't, when they're just talking about the podcast, what it takes to go into this, and could be anything, you don't know what it takes to do all of these kind of things. And so sometimes it's like you said, it's not necessarily the sitting down and having a conversation because this is easy.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people like, I don't think I could come on the podcast or I couldn't do it. But it's like you can't have a conversation. You can't just sit down and talk because you tend to forget about the cameras and the lights and all. You can't forget about that right in your face. But, it is very easy to think that those kind of things are more difficult to do, but sometimes it's the mundane tasks that you have to do that just are not fun. They're not glamorous, but you got to do them anyway.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I don't always do this when we have our podcast, but sometimes, like, I like to have just little bullet points. Like, I don't have a lot of notes where I'm like just totally reading from it, but I like to like make sure I touch certain spots of like a topic and talk about. So I like to have a bullet point sometimes just to look quickly. Oh yeah, okay, talk about that, and then I can sit and have a conversation about it for a while. But just the initial, and also one reason why this is hard for me sometimes is just with just there's days I don't even want to talk to people.
Yeah,
not that I have anything wrong with you or any of my staff or my wife or anything like that. There's just days that I just want to be in my nothing box, sit there and not have to speak. And that's fell on some of those days. I've had that feeling where I'm like, I got to come do this today because I don't want to even talk to people.
I get that.
So this is one of the things for me that I do that, even though it's not necessarily my most exciting thing that I enjoy doing, it's a necessary thing to help put us out there. And plus I also like when we bring on guests and help support them and put their business out there and things like that. And I'm passionate about helping other business owners that hopefully everything we're recording here also helps them. So I keep those in mind when I don't necessarily feel like doing it, that I try to keep everything in mind of why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. In terms of, in a business or in a leadership position or whatever, if there's things you don't want to do or you don't enjoy doing, how do you get yourself to do them anyway? What do you tell yourself, or what do you do to get that energy up to be able to accomplish those things? Like for me, for example, any kind of reports or any kind of filling out a thing is just like, and I know you like to do the numbers and all that. And like, I can look at them for like maybe like 5 minutes. And then after that, it's just like, they're not going to tell me anything else. So, But some people enjoy that. So what do you do to get yourself ready to take on those tasks, or like when you come in here to record or whatever, to be able to do it?
So I think it's just straight discipline for the most part. Is it's got to get done, and I got to get it done. That's how I look at it. And I think the military / law enforcement really helped instill that into me because, I couldn't just, especially in the military, that was my first start was the military. So I couldn't just lay in bed and say, yeah, I'm not going to go to training today. I'm just going to lay here.
You could do that. But
I can't say this is my world that I'm living
Yeah.
in. Once you're in the military, it's no. This is exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
You're going to get up right now, and if you don't, you're getting thrown out of the bed and everything like that. Also, when I was younger, not that my dad did this, but when I stayed at my uncle's house, my uncle had a cow shocker. And if the kids didn't get up for school in the morning, he'd get the cow shocker out and shock them up and get
Good
them.
Lord.
So when I stayed at their house, I made sure as soon as I heard that door open, I jumped out of bed. I'm like, yep, I'm getting up. And so,
That's one of those you learn once. You only got to learn once, hopefully.
but no, I think honestly, discipline is the biggest thing for me. Is that it's just got to get done, and let's just knock it out. And the more you put it off, then now you're stacking up things, and now it becomes not just I don't really want to do this. Now it's overwhelming of the tasks you have because you keep putting them off because you don't want to do them.
Yeah. So I want to provide a couple of tips for people to think about, because I think we all face this one way or another. Some of us more than others. Discipline is important, but I want to define like what that physically looks like for people. And for me, there's a couple of different ways that I look at that. And someone who can get overwhelmed if there's a bunch of tasks, what I find is useful is number one, just to start. Like that moment when you're like, I don't want to do this, just do it. Like that, like I don't even think that takes discipline. I just take that's just sheer willpower to say the hell with it, and I'm gonna get started.
I think actually willpower is probably the better word than discipline.
The one thing that I like to do is I will create a list, and I saw a video on this the other day, and I was like, holy crap, that is so true. Because for some people, it's like, hey, I got to clean the bathroom, I have to pay bills, and I have to unload and reload the dishwasher, right? So that's three. For most people, that's like three tasks. But for me, clean the bathroom involves like 80 steps. Yeah. I'm going to write down, I got to scrub the toilet. I have to clean the mirror. I have to clean the sink out. I have to sweep the floor. I got to make sure that I change out the toilet paper roll. I got to pick up the towels. So there's a lot of things. And so when my brain goes to that, I don't go to just clean the bathroom. So when you write down that whole list of things, now there's smaller tasks that I can start to knock out. But what I'll do is I'll also make that list. Okay, here's all the bills I have to pay. And then here's all of the everything I have to do to clean up the kitchen, right? So now instead of just having 3 tasks what a normal person would have, I got 80 tasks to do. And so now I'm going to pick what's most important, and I'm just going to focus on that. But again, it comes back to just that willpower of just getting started. Like coming in here to record, there's a lot of things that have to happen before we show up here. Not just what are the topics we're going to be talking about. There's also, I got to figure out, what I'm going to wear. I got to make sure, what time is it that I eat before I get here? Am I going to eat, because I don't want to be halfway through and get hungry. And now I'm thinking about, man, now I'm hungry. Do I have enough gas to get here? Because I got to drive across town. Is there something going on at work that I have to deal with? So there's a lot of things that go into it. But once you get into the flow, once you get doing whatever that thing is, everything else starts to become easier. And I want people to understand that it's not just the discipline to do it, but literally taking that first step, picking up that first dirty clothes, or putting away that first shirt. If you're one of those people that laundry piles up, that's one of the things I can't let do is laundry pile up. It drives me crazy. So putting them away, just doing that first one, I think that helps a lot. if you're having to run numbers for the end of the, end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, just get started. Pull up the spreadsheet, pull down the bank reports, whatever it is, just do that first step and then worry about what comes after that.
Yep.
Don't try to worry about the whole thing unless you make that whole list. Like if you're one of those people who like to make that whole list, do that and then just start at the top and work your way down.
Yeah, and wanted to touch on a little bit what you're talking about, the prioritizing things like that. This was before you came on, but we were having a lot of issues with like when we were really busy and people feeling overwhelmed and things like that because they were seeing the big picture of everything that had to be done. And I found this little blurb, meme, whatever you want to call it, where it shows a caricature or whatever of somebody with their mind full, mind Full, and they're just like overwhelmed and anxious and things like that. And then the bottom blurb is mindful and mind and then FUL, one word. And then it talks, and then it basically shows prioritization, things like that. And like then he's got the task, do this first, do that, whatever. Yeah. Like it shows. And I printed those out and had everybody post them above their computer screen and their area in the back, so that they can keep that in mind. That when we are busy and things are going crazy, don't think about the big picture. Start narrowing it down to, all right, this one's got to be done first, and then knock that out, then go to the next one. Don't see the big picture, just see the next step. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I think it's important for leadership or managers to understand their people. Well, no, let me rephrase that. You're not, managers don't understand people. They know processes. So it's important for the leadership people to understand their people.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that will get overwhelmed if they don't know the big picture, right? Yep. And then there's other people that get overwhelmed by the big picture. And so to know your people is important.
Yeah.
And then if you have the priority, so when those times hit, and I've seen it, okay, so when those times hit when you're super, super busy, as long as people know what the priority is,
yeah,
like you said, be mindful of what your role is, let someone else worry about the big picture. If you need to understand the big picture, here's the big picture, now be mindful of your area. So it's important to already have those priorities laid out of what's most important. So when you are busy, just focus on what's most important. Everything else is no big deal. And then if someone comes in and says, hey, Josh, I know you're working on this right now. This is not the priority. This is the priority. You have to, as an employee, let that go, what you think is most important, and go focus on what you've been told is a priority. Now,
yep.
At the same time, and here's maybe the bigger trick. What about those times when you're not busy?
Yeah.
When there's not a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
Now what is my priority? It could be training. It could be, brushing up on policies. It could be learning something like for us, the equipment that we use. Is there a new, better way to do stuff? Is there new software that's out? Maintenance, maintenance. So again, having those priorities in place when it's not busy will help do away with that. I've been reading a book here lately. I'm about halfway through it, and it's funny because it fits right in with this topic. It's called The Fred Factor, and I can't remember the guy's name that wrote it.
Fred?
No, it wasn't Fred. Fred's the postman. I just started reading it like 2 days ago. And essentially what it's talking about is it's a story about, and the lessons from this guy's postman, Fred, who goes way above and beyond, what would otherwise be a pretty monotonous job of just going and putting letters in a mailbox day in and day out, all this kind of stuff. But he takes the time to get to know his customers. He takes the time to understand their process, to ask them questions, to the point to where if he knows you're like the guy that wrote the book, the postman Fred said, hey, I know you travel a lot. When you're going out of town, let me know, and I'll just hold your mail. If you'll just give me your schedule for the year, as far as you know, I'll just hold your mail. And then that way it doesn't pile up, because if it piles up, then bad people are looking for that, and they'll break into your house. Who else what other postal service worker would have ever thought to do something like that, right? And it's because of the type of person he is. If you're any kind of, like in the print industry, you know, we don't just look at, oh, you want these flyers printed. We want to understand why. Who's your target market? So then now we can make recommendations based on that. So we go above and beyond, not because we're trying to make some bigger impression or get more sales or anything like that, because that's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you take that same approach as a business owner to your employees, get to know your employees, get to know what's important to them, how they function. Do they want to know the big picture? Do they not want to know? Like, I can think of two people in FIP right now. One definitely wants to know the big picture to see where they fit in. The other one, like I just want to know what I need to get done, and that's it. I don't want to know anything else. I just want to. I'm sure the two people just popped in your head who I'm talking about. Both of them are very good at what they do. Both of them are very hard workers, but they're on complete opposite ends of what they want to know and how they operate and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to understand those things, because they're both going to do exactly what we need them to do to be successful.
Yep.
Just with two sets of information.
Well, speaking of just employees in general, one of the things that, for me, that it isn't always the most funnest thing to mess with is the hiring process, and bringing on somebody new. That whole process in general is, because it's not fun in general, just because of what's out there on the market.
Yeah.
Like, you get so overwhelmed when you put yourself out there that you're hiring, and there's people that are just throwing an application in because they're trying to, there's different, I don't even know the rules, but with an unemployment or any government assistance you get or something like that, you have to put so many applications per month or something like that. And a lot of these people are just throwing them in there just to, because I've called some of them, and they never seem actually like they don't ever answer back or call back or anything like that. And it seems clear that they're just doing it because they're supposed to. But then also for me, like, I want somebody that's going to grow long-term, have similar goals, going to take care of the customers properly, have good character, get along with everybody. Like, it's a whole, like, gambit of things that, like, I think of when it comes to that. And it's always stressful, because somebody can always, like, come in and pull the wool over your eyes and make you think like they're this sweet, nice person, but then they come in and just, like, are a terror.
Completely disruptive. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, from an employee side of that, there's a lot of that angst that goes into it too.
Yeah.
Because, you don't really know the
culture.
situation. You don't know the culture. You don't know if you're going to like the job or not.
You don't know if they're gonna keep you around for long term.
So and it's and then it's like if you applied at like 10 different places and you got 10 different interviews and 10 different offers, just like, how do you know that you're choosing the right one? So I think if both sides understand that, as an employee, you need to come with your authentic self.
Yeah.
I've been in the hiring process of a lot of people in the past for the government and things like that. And, I am more interested in the people who are their authentic self.
Yep.
Now, if you're a lazy couch potato and you cuss like a sailor and,
don't bring that in.
Bring that in
so I see
bring that
it.
in so I see that. Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is, like, when the questions are asked, the typical, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Oh, my weaknesses, I work too hard. I care too much. Shut up. That's not your weakness. And we all know it. In other words, don't try and act like you don't have weaknesses. Don't try and act like your strengths are like some magical superpower. Just be honest with it and trust in the process. And at the same time, if you're hiring people, understand that applicant is counting on you liking them to give them a job.
Yeah.
And so they automatically think that they have to tell you what you want to hear, which is how you get the person that's like, oh my God, they were perfect. They said all the right things, and then I hired them and they were a freaking nightmare. They came in here and they were disrupting, the company and all that kind of stuff. So, that can be daunting on both sides of that.
And one other thing that I can think of that for me is not necessarily fun. Again, kind of ties to the podcast thing a little bit, but in general, like niching down to specific, because that's hard for me as a business owner, because I am, we can literally be anybody's, any customer could be our customer. We can work with anybody. So it's always hard for me to like, and I try to listen to my marketing people and what they tell me. So I'm just like, okay, I trust what you're saying, but it's hard to like sit back and do that. But also then with that, like healthcare, we've talked about this, is one of our main things that we target, just because they are one, there's a lot of them around this area with the older population and the retirement communities we have around here and things like that. But it isn't always necessarily like an exciting thing to like, whereas, some of our customers are, university, we've done some stuff for some different universities and schools, football, basketball, like those things obviously excite me, cause I'm a big sports fanatic, but some of it isn't necessarily exciting, but also our industry isn't always exciting either, paper, but we have aspects of it that is pretty cool, because I always love seeing people excited when they come in and see their logo on things, and between that, whether that's a shirt, a hat, a promo item, or just a flyer, that part of it I like seeing the end result, but the physical thing isn't always the exciting thing for me. But just figuring out, doing the whole niching down to help the company grow is not always the funnest thing to think about as a business owner, especially when a business like ours, where we can have anybody to work with type of thing,
That's like, I think of places like hotels and stuff like that, who, anybody can stay at a hotel. But there's some out there, when you watch the advertisement, they focus on the business traveler, or there's some that focus on the family experience, or there's some that focus on the conventions, or things like that. So even in an industry like that, they still focus on plumbers, electricians. How do you niche down in that kind of
because they have
servicing?
Everybody's their customer too.
Look, everybody has a toilet.
Yep.
Everybody's going to need a plumber. So how do you niche down as a plumber? Well, maybe it's not a specific type of customer. Maybe it's geographic.
Yep.
Maybe you're just focused on, or you're only going to focus on
residential,
or commercial,
yep,
or new builds versus,
fixing up somebody's house,
maintenance, maintenance and stuff like that. So, there are still ways to do it. But you still don't turn down, if you get a phone call, it's like, hey, we got we're building 300 houses, would you be interested in being a plumber? Be like, nope, I only unclog toilets. Of course you're not going to do that.
No.
If we're focused on the medical field, an equine hospital calls us up and say, hey, can you print this for me? Be like, nope, you're not that medical. We're only looking for people medical.
Yeah.
No, of course we're going to print for them. But the niching down part of the business you're talking about, that I can see where that can be challenging, because now you really have to get into the weeds as to why this is your customer. You got to really focus on why you're going after this particular group. And so you have to kind of turn off that natural instinct to say, we want to print for everybody, when we will.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about spending money towards advertising and things like that, that's where that thought process comes in. So
I just was watching a podcast the other day that had David Goggins on as a guest. I can't think of what podcast it is right off the top of my head right now. But one of the things they talked about was doing the things that you don't enjoy doing. And David Goggins of all is like the father of all that.
I think he enjoys doing things he doesn't enjoy. Yeah, so for him to say, do the things you don't enjoy, I think he actually enjoys the things he doesn't like.
I think so too. But one thing so he was a guest on, and this guy, like, I don't know if he is a neuroscientist or he just geeks out on it. I'm not sure the 100% exactly what he does. But he was talking, and he wanted to wait till David Goggins came on to talk about it. But there's been more research out there that there's a particular part of the brain, Now, don't ask me the name of it because it's a very hard word to say.
The
but
Abdullah oblongata.
not that. It was something else. But it was a
So it makes
similar.
alligators ornery.
It was a similar word that was very hard to say. But basically, this part of your brain grows and shrinks by the things you do that you don't enjoy doing. It actually grows.
I think I have heard this. Yeah, go ahead.
It grows when you do the things that you don't want to do. And it could be so small as, okay, I love ice cream, but I needed to diet. So me restraining to eat that ice cream, even though I want it, that just me restraining myself now is growing that part of my brain because and they have apparently done a lot of research in the people that live longer. This part of the brain was the biggest.
Yeah.
Whereas the people that have shorter lives are a lot of times that part of the brain is smaller. And so they have tied the research together now saying basically the people that do the things they don't want to do or things that suck, whatever it is, that they actually can extend their life longer. He basically said David Goggins is going to live forever. But then I think he said something like you said. It was like, but you know what? You might do it so much you actually enjoy it.
Yeah, that makes you wonder if those two groups of people, the ones that do everything they want to do and have fun, die sooner, or the people who do all the things they don't want to do but live longer, if they met in heaven, which one would say I had a better life? I wonder.
Yeah.
the one that went out at 27 because they were skydiving and doing all the fun things, or the one who's like, I did nothing but eat vegetables and I lived to be 90?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that point also, again, I listen to a lot of podcasts and things like that. But Alex Hormozy the other day, this is a while ago actually, but a reel came through that I popped up. And he was talking about, he had a guy at one of his gyms, that was just a personal trainer only making, $25K because it's based on each time he comes in, does a training session or whatever. So it's a commission based basically. And he did such a good job. He was one of the best trainers and he wanted him to move up in the company and he promoted him to manager, doubled his salary, to get that. And literally a year or two later, he approached him and said, can I go back to being a personal trainer? And he's like, wow, you're doing such a good job. And also you're going to take a huge pay cut, by doing this, cut it in half basically, if not more. And he said, I was just happier. And, he ended up running into this guy 10 years later, still personal trainer, still not making much. And still the happiest guy in the world. Yep. And he said, the guy mentioned to him something about basically, I'm not to your level or anything like that. And I was like, dude, I'm shooting for you. Like, I try to get to your level where I'm always happy. Yeah. And, it doesn't always necessarily mean, the big things grand things we think about. Sometimes it's just finding whatever it is you enjoy and just being happy with it.
Yeah. And it reminds me of that story about the old fisherman who come in, had some fish, and there was a guy from New York there, and he said, oh, where'd you catch all them fish? He goes, yeah, I'm going to, go feed my family. He goes, oh, well, what else do you do? He says, well, nothing. I fish every day. Then I go and I hang out with my wife and my kids, and I have fun. And he goes, the New Yorker goes, well, if you hire some people, you can get twice as many fish, and then you can sell them in the market. And when you've sold enough, you can move to New York, and you could open up a big company. You could, supply fish all over the world, make a lot of money and a lot of people happy. And, after, 20, 30 years, you could sell your company and then move back down here, and you could just fish all day and spend time with your wife and kids and your family. And it's like, he's doing what he wants to do now.
Yeah.
But I think it's all perspective.
Yeah.
If you're one of those who are happy with where you're at in life and you're meeting your needs, there's still going to be things you have to do that suck.
Yep.
That's just how it is. But how do you look at those things? Do you look at those things as this sucks, I have to do it? Or do you just look at it as, hey, do you know what? This is just a part of what I do, and I got to go on and do it. And it's the same thing if you want to, be the richest man in the world. If you want to be the Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Alex Hormozy or any of those kind of people, you're going to still have to do the things that suck. The point is, if you're one of those people, and we could probably wrap it up with this, if you're one of those people who always says, this sucks, I don't want to do it, then you're going to be saying, this sucks, I don't want to do it until you die.
Yep.
If you're one of those people that says, this sucks, but I'm going to do it because I know on the other side of that, good things are going to happen,
Yep.
then you're going to get a little bit further in life. Or you can be one of those people that is like, I'm glad this sucks because I know this is going to be awesome, so let's get to it.
Yep.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. No, it's all about perspective and how you spin your thought process. What was it? Oh man. I can't think of his name right now, but I think he's a Marine. And he's a good, that video, that guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of that guy's name, but whenever something sucks and or something doesn't go his way, he just says good. Like that whole video. I'm sure everybody's seen that by now. That one, but yeah. Anyways, that's a good way to wrap it up. Just always remember that not always doing the things that you love to do is what is actually needed for your company to be successful. A lot of times, and actually I would say every time, the only way for it to be successful is to get to the point where you're doing the things that you don't necessarily enjoy to get to that level. If you appreciate the podcast, give us a like, subscribe. Hope to see you again. Again, comment if you got any questions, comments. I'd love to interact with you guys. Until next time, let's grow together.
It's time to step up, yeah. It's grind time, no more letting up. No, running faster, further, no more running up. Yeah, giving my all, no more giving up. Listen to me, step, it's time to step it up. Yeah, it's time to step it up. Step, it's time to step it up. Yeah, it's time to step it up. It's time to step up.